This is day 15 of the experiment, and so far it's going very well. I don't feel particularly tired or lethargic throughout the day. I pretty much have the same energy as I had before. Also, after workouts, I don't really feel particularly sore, and in fact, the increase in the weights I lift in the gym has pretty much been increasing at the same rate as before the diet. And next week I'll give the specifics to what kinds of exercises I'm doing and the amount of weight I'm using for each exercise, and I'll give the specifics next week. In addition, I don't really have any cravings for any sort of food, and I do think there is a reason behind this, just because since November, throughout track season, I've been eating very lean, and I've only been eating meat at dinner time, and the only meat I would have at dinner time would usually be either chicken breast or some sort of white fish. I never really had too much of the red or fatty meats, so I guess I was sort of acclimated to the, I guess you could say, clean eating, because I was eating a lot of vegetables and whole grains and stuff like that. And since I guess I've been so used to it, all I did was just cut out the bit of meat I had in the evening and pretty much replaced with something like tofu. In addition to that point, before the diet, I didn't really eat much dairy either, just because it's a personal preference. I don't really like dairy that much. Yeah, I don't really like eggs, yogurt, milk, or cheese, and besides drinking milk with my breakfast cereal, I really wouldn't have any sorts of dairy, so not being able to eat dairy hasn't really been much of a loss for me. And speaking of diet, that leads into today's discussion on the grounds in which vegans justify their diet. Vegans justify their diet mainly on the basis that meat consumption leads to developing certain diseases, while being vegan does not. As stated in the last video, a study done by the World Health Organization yielded that there is a correlation between a high consumption of red or processed meat and cancer. And the adverse health effects of overconsumption of meat doesn't stop there. And for today, we'll discuss heart disease, and the heart disease itself will be closely examined. And the two things that will be examined will be the causes of heart disease and the relationship of vegans and omnivores with the disease, meaning how the two essentially react to the disease. And today, just heart disease will be examined simply because the number of diseases correlated with high meat consumption and diseases not correlated with veganism because of that diet, there are just way too many to cover. And just for today, we'll cover heart disease specifically because vegans do tend to advocate this disease specifically because it affects a large number of people. In fact, 24% of Americans in all ethnic demographics are killed per year by heart disease. Heart disease is a condition which constitutes of many different symptoms, but most of the symptoms really turn back to atherosclerosis, which is the severe plaque buildup in the arteries. And what causes atherosclerosis is usually cholesterol. That is known to be the main culprit of atherosclerosis. So in 1910, a pathologist named Nikolai Anichkov, I can't pronounce that, but conducted an experiment where he fed rabbits a high cholesterol diet, and all the rabbits eventually developed atherosclerosis. In the years following, there are many experiments similar to Anichkov's, and similar findings in similar experiments led to the formation of the lipid hypothesis, which states that elevated levels of blood cholesterol leads directly to heart disease. Then the question would be, what leads blood cholesterol levels to rise? Various experiments have demonstrated that diets consisting of meat tend to make the test subjects experience higher cholesterol levels than that of vegans and vegetarians. Furthermore, of the three, vegans tend to have the lowest cholesterol levels. In fact, they have extremely low cholesterol levels, if not any. This shows that dietary cholesterol and saturated fats leads to higher blood cholesterol levels. Interestingly enough, all the tests which demonstrated a correlation between high cholesterol and atherosclerosis were conducted on herbivores. In fact, carnivorous animals cannot develop atherosclerosis despite high blood cholesterol levels. These carnivorous animals only develop atherosclerosis when they have their thyroids removed. This phenomenon has led some scientists to believe that humans are herbivores more than carnivores, since only herbivores are affected by high cholesterol levels leading into atherosclerosis. While initially LDL or low-density lipoprotein cholesterol particles damage the endothelial cells lining the arteries and will lodge themselves into the arterial wall, causing inflammation. The macrophages of the immune system attempt to consume and digest the cholesterol. the macrophages will become saturated with cholesterol and turn into foam cells, which contribute to plaque buildup. In addition, the foam cells created will start to build up plaque in the arterial wall. Smooth muscle cells are also drawn into the masses of foam cells, and the smooth muscle cells encase the masses of foam cells and create obstruction in the bloodstream. Over time, plaque buildups rupture, and masses of cholesterol-laden foam cells pour into the bloodstream and many times block arteries, causing heart attacks. Essentially, this is the process in which plaque builds up into your arteries, causing blood clots, high blood pressure, even heart attacks, strokes, and ultimately that all those symptoms culminate into heart disease. In addition to heart disease, some experiments show that diets high in saturated fats also allow the subject to be more susceptible to the expression of their pro-inflammatory gene in their adipose tissue, which leads to metabolic instability, which then leads to obesity. Obesity is when someone has an extreme excess of adipose tissue, usually caused by excessive eating. Also, obesity is usually defined as both a physical and psychological disease. Many obese people have trouble losing the weight since they got to be that size due to childhood trauma, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or other sorts of mental illnesses. The danger is that excessive eating, which usually stems from psychological issues which take years to cure, negatively contribute to extreme weight gains and atherosclerosis. Initially, I was going to just talk about heart disease, but the reason why I mentioned obesity was because it demonstrates that the same factors that affect the buildup of plaque in your arteries also affect different diseases, in this case obesity, meaning that the same dietary choices, meaning high consumption of cholesterol or saturated fats, will not only lead to the clogging of your arteries, but it might contribute to obesity. Now, in face of the facts, it might seem like vegans are completely incapable of contracting heart disease, but that is actually not true. Even though they consume little to no cholesterol and saturated fat, vegans still can get heart disease. Rather than high blood cholesterol levels, vitamin B12 deficiency is usually what causes heart disease in vegans. The most common way of obtaining vitamin B12 is through meat consumption, but since vegans do not eat any animal products, many vegans have a hard time of getting vitamin B12 into their bodies. Low vitamin B12 deficiency leads to homocysteine levels to rise and then leads to arterial sclerosis, not atherosclerosis. The difference is that arteriosclerosis is the hardening of the arteries rather than the plaque buildup of the arteries, which is atherosclerosis. This simply demonstrates that there are multiple factors which contribute to the formation of heart disease. Despite this, vegans can simply supplement their diet with B12 fortified foods and/or vitamin B12 supplements. All the while, vegans can maintain the exact same diet they have while taking account of vitamin B12 and greatly lower their chances for heart disease. On the other hand, meat eaters may have a lower risk of contracting arteriosclerosis due to their higher vitamin B12 levels. They still would be at risk of atherosclerosis due to the fact that they consume large amounts of meat. So when taking into account of vitamin B12, vegans can actually have lower risk for both arterial and atherosclerosis, more so than their non-vegan counterparts. Based off of the facts, here are some of the arguments that vegans use. There is proof showing a relationship between meat consumption and high blood cholesterol levels, which then leads to heart disease. The correlation between high blood cholesterol levels and atherosclerosis is only found in herbivores, not carnivores. Since this affects humans, it implies that humans are more herbivores, thus a vegan diet free of animal products is actually more natural. Vegans are susceptible to heart disease, but can prevent it while maintaining the same diet. On the other hand, omnivores cannot.